morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Mr. Bell can't be with us today, and Mr. Gurley will be here shortly. He's running a little late, but he will be with us. If we all bow our heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and the needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Before we say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, let's remember why we pledge to this flag, for our men and women that have sacrificed so much in the past and the ones that are sacrificing for us to have the freedom that we have today in America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Rakoff. Has everybody had the opportunity to read the minutes? So are there any corrections? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes. So move. Got a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Is there any adjustment to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as it is.
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Okay. Well, we'll all come down and stand up front. We've got some presentations going on. We've got Senator Davis here and Representative Bell here, and we're going to let them turn loose. Let us come on down, folks, if we would.
Well, good morning. Our commissioners. Well, let me say good morning, Mr. Chair, to the Board of Commissioners, and to the citizens of this great county. I'm Don Davis, and as you know so well, this is Representative John Bell, and we've been given a special assignment as we come to you today, just a few days short of Thanksgiving. This is a time that we are able to extend our gratitude and appreciation to each other. And that's what Thanksgiving is about. Well, today we were sent on this assignment by the governor to recognize one of our own citizens who distinguished themselves with outstanding service. And on behalf of the state, we're here today on the eve of Thanksgiving to extend our gratitude and thankfulness for all the work. So Pam, you keep looking at me today for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's about you today. But we're here today to recognize Pam with the highest award that any citizen of this state is able to earn. And indeed, Pam earned this distinction. Before I go on, at this time, I'm going to recognize John to share words.
It's nice to be here. It's kind of fitting. It's leading up to Thanksgiving, and as many of you know, through the election, our district has been divided up, and we actually lost representation. And one of the folks that we're going to miss is Senator Don Davis, who's represented Wayne County very well over the last 8 years. And even though I no longer represent Wayne County, I also work with him in Greene County, and we'll continue that relationship to better Eastern North Carolina. Thank you for your service. Well, there's nothing really left to say except Ms. Pam Minshew, what an outstanding job. Thank you for the service you've given the citizens of Wayne County for so many years. You you did it right. And then when you got ready to retire, to go enjoy life and experience with grandbabies, the citizens entrusted justice to continue that legacy of the hard work that the Minshew family has done for our county. So why don't you and Mr. Kenny and the rest of the family come up, and we have a very special presentation that we would like to present you.
If I may, if I may share with you, what's up, buddy? Light that out here. The family, anybody? Yeah. Come on up. Come on up. This is a family affair.
If I go, I can't take this picture.
Pam, we see why you won the election.
Well, let me share. Pam Minshew, as you know, she is a native of Wayne County, and she truly poured her heart and soul into the office of clerk in Superior Court. And Pam, we want to thank you for all that you've done for this county. You gave it your all. You served in the office of the clerk. Hear this, everybody. Over 38 years. And in that capacity as clerk, I mean, not always that we'll understand what the clerk does, but she had an enormous responsibility of over $8.2 million in collecting of fines, fees, forfeitures, not including bonds, over a little over $1 million in bond forfeitures. She managed about 35 employees. And she did a lot with a little, because she kept coming up to us and saying, hey, can we help the staff? She was a fierce advocate for her employees and loved her employees dearly. And not only that, but she served on various boards, different capacities throughout the community. And above all that, she was elected in 2006. First time, and continued to serve in that capacity. Next to her job, I think everybody knows this, and that's her love for her family. I believe she dealt with you, Kenny, for what, over 23 years? Is that correct? More than that. More than that. 30, that's the marriage capacity. And obviously, we're standing here today, and I'm certain that your sons, Justin and Gentry, are so proud of their mom today. And that grandkid back there, he's so happy for you as well. But we're here today, and I'm standing with John. John said it best. We've worked very well as a delegation, and I want to be very clear. I'm here because officially I put in the request, but I can tell you that John and his office worked very hard to also make this reality. So with that being stated, we're getting ready to put your name up there with some of the great North Carolinians here. John?
Well, the only rule we had in Raleigh, and you know this, is when the Office of Administration of Courts would come in, I would say, is this going to make Ms. Pam happy? And of course, the answer was well or yes, and if it was well, then we had to go back and recruit. So we'll make sure you're happy. But I just want to read this. State of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, Governor, representing special compliments and integrity, learning, and seal of Pamela Minshew to do by these confer the Order of the Longleaf Pines and the rank of a Master Extraordinaire and the privilege to fully enjoy all the rights granted under the Sixth Order. As you can see, everything is here. So one of the joys of receiving this award is not only the prestige that it has, but the opportunity to lead the state of North Carolina Toast in any company you choose to. So, and I will read that. It's here's the land of the Longleaf Pine, the summer land where the sun does shine, where the weak grow strong and the strong grow great. Here's to them home, the old. On behalf of the state of North Carolina and Governor Cooper and our Wayne County delegation, thank you for your service to the state of North Carolina.
Oh, Lord. Thank you so much. It's an honor. I've watched this being given to a lot of people over the years, over the state. In Wayne County, I've even written reference letters for people, and I thought what an honor it would be. Believe me, it's an honor. I feel I'm just thrilled to have it. Not only is it an honor for me, it's an honor for my office because my staff was wonderful. They helped me achieve this, and I couldn't have done it without it. And I do thank y'all so much. I want to do this again. I know y'all are tired of hearing this, but I want to thank the people of Wayne County for allowing me to be clerk, to start as your clerk. And it was my pleasure and my honor. And I do appreciate this so much. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, to Commissioners, thank you again for allowing us this opportunity. And Pam, thank you for your service and the spirit that you've done it in, and making it look so easy, because this is what we know about you. You always did it wearing that wonderful smile.
Thank you.
Continue wearing that wonderful smile. Have a great Thanksgiving. And for those who allow me that opportunity to serve as well, I say to you, thank you again. May God bless each and every resident of this wonderful county.
And you keep looking after this.
Sheriff, the floor is yours.
I'd like to ask Lieutenant Mike Cox and Deputy Truhan to come forward, please. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, well, again, we're here before you with some of our retirees that I'm going to miss greatly. We have Lieutenant Mike Cox and Deputy Truhan, who have served well in the Sheriff's Office for a number of years, and we certainly do appreciate their dedication to Wayne County and to the Sheriff's Office. Gentlemen, if you want to come to my left a little closer, I won't bite you now, you're leaving me. It says to Mike Cox from the Sheriff's Office, in appreciation of dedicated service as a county employee, County of Wayne, North Carolina, and present to Daniel Truhan from the Sheriff's Office in appreciation of dedicated service as a county employee, County of Wayne of North Carolina. And these plaques are from the county, and congratulations on that. And we also have a couple of plaques here from our office. For Daniel Joseph Truhan and to Lieutenant Michael Kenneth Cox in recognition and appreciation of years of loyal and dedicated service to the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, presented by Sheriff Larry M. Pierce. Again, thank you. Right, you just lay it right here if you run out of space. These are the resolutions that will be approved by the commissioners to present you with your firearms. Lieutenant. And these are the firearms that you carry to protect the citizens of Wayne County during your tenure. Lieutenant Michael Cox and to Daniel Joseph Truhan for meritorious service, dedication, loyalty, friendship, and professionalism that you have demonstrated during your career. Your presence will be missed, but your accomplishments will not be forgotten. Again, thank you. Yeah, if you don't put those comes down and shake the commissioner's hand.
And before you two guys leave, of course, one picture, I need a motion on the floor to approve the resolution. So moved. Got a motion on the floor for discussion. All in favor, please raise your right hand. If you're legal. Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, John. Not noticed him on Saturday.
Makes me look smart. So in other words, I looked dumb before.
Unless you like Craig, put your glasses on your head.
I take them off.
I like them, I really do. Okay, and before I forget, the clerk reminded me that it is the cold flu season, so if you get a cough, if you cover your mic or put it on mute. I did what you asked.
Use your hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer in front of you. Okay, we got all that done. All right, we'll go ahead and move on into public comments. If there's anyone who wants to speak, give you 4 minutes, give us your name, address, and phone number. Don't fight over it, guys.
That's right.
Yeah, go ahead. Name, address, and all that kind of stuff, you know.
I'm Steve L. Herring. Don't forget the L. 349 Weaver Road, Goldsboro, NC. Area code 919-689-2722. My phone number is 919-689-2669. I had an instance last night and I had an instance last week. Person's dog was out, knocked the elderly lady down. She was walking her dog, come out and charged her dog, knocked her down, hurt her shoulder, could have very easily broke a leg or an arm or something like that. Had another instance last night about 10 o'clock. Somebody called me and said that somebody's bulldog wouldn't let them in the house, in their own house. So I went out and got the bulldog put back in the pen. Gentlemen, it took me 3 months to get a dog trap out at my place. Every time you call and ask about it, they say, well, we haven't got any traps now. Well, I want the commissioners to know if they ain't got enough dog traps, I'll buy them some traps. Now, I finally got one last week. Got a real nice officer, but the only way I could get her was to call 911. I personally don't think we need to be disturbing 911 for animal control problems. The animals do not work a 9-to-5 schedule. They're here on the weekends, they're here in the middle of the night, they're here all times. They get out of the pens. There's a leash law in Wayne County, but there's nobody enforcing that leash law, don't look like. Now, something needs to be done. We need to put, looks like to me, we need to put some more people out there to police these neighborhoods and catch these bad dogs. Evidently, you got a bunch of animal lovers up there in the dog pound. And what they're doing They don't want to euthanize no animals, it appears to me. So they only, when they get a vacancy in the pen, then they'll go catch another one. But they want to keep what they got in the pen until they're adopted out. And if they don't get adopted out, I reckon they'll just have to keep, not catch anymore until they can get an empty pen. It's a black eye on Wayne County that animal control cannot police their own animals. And I don't see if we could have a animal officer on duty on Saturday and Sunday and in the middle of the night or whatever. I don't see no reason why people should have to call 911 or wait until somebody gets attacked and bit and harmed before somebody can get animal control right there. Now, something needs to be done, and I just don't know where the problem lies, unless they're animal control scared to euthanize animals. They're too kind-hearted for the job. And people in this county need some relief. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Barry?
My name is Barry Merrill. I live at 432 Club Knowles Road in Dudley. My phone number is 919-922-1499. Mr. Aycock, I know back a month or two ago, you spoke passionately about your granddaughter. And last night at 2 o'clock, I had the honor and privilege of rocking my 7-month-old precious Nancy, my granddaughter, back to sleep. And she's got some health issues, but nothing serious, praise God. And I appreciate that honor and that privilege to rock my grandchild. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to have that opportunity. I have a responsibility to provide for her and to help care for her. Marilyn and I are helping to raise her and her twin brother. But my daughter very much values the importance of education. She got her degree at NC State, got her master's degree at NC State, and she's a teacher now because she believes in education, and that's how she's making a living. As it stands today, my precious Nancy and Philip would go to a low-performing school in Wayne County for primary school and for middle school, and up until a few months ago, a high school that was low-performing. As I understand it, 40% of our students, 4 of every 10 students in Wayne County attend a low-performing school. In addition, most of the schools in Wayne County that we provide are over 50 years old and are poorly maintained. In addition to, some of them are 70 and 90 years old, as you all well know. In addition to that, we've got temporary mobile classrooms that have been on site for over 20 years in a lot of schools in this county. I have not, you have not properly funded our schools for a whole long time. These problems didn't pop up overnight. They've been here for a long time. Our county manager and our school superintendent put together a budget and a means of addressing the needs across this county. We made a decision. A lot of people agreed that a better way to fund school improvements in this county would be through the passage of a sales tax referendum. I agree with that if we could get it passed, but we didn't. We suffered a setback. I suffered a setback. We all in Wayne County suffered a setback. Our grandchildren, Mr. Mayo's grandchildren, Mr. Cromartie's grandchildren, all of our grandchildren suffered a setback. What are we going to do about it? The best decision that you gentlemen have made in the years that you've been serving as a board was when you hired George Wood to be county manager. He saved the taxpayers of Wayne County millions of dollars, and you funded a whole lot of needs across this county. Mr. Daugherty, I think, would agree the best day's work that the school board did was when they hired a new school superintendent. You got a school superintendent you're paying a lot of money. You've got a county manager that you're paying a lot of money. Let them do their jobs. Let them come up with ways that we can address the important school needs in this county, and support them. Don't say that I can't afford to pay any more in property taxes to provide the education for my grandchildren, for Mr. Mayo's grandchildren, Mr. Cromartie's, all of our grandchildren. Please don't do that. Give them the opportunity to address those needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merrill. Is there anyone else? Oh, okay. I thought he was coming up here. All right, well, I'm going to close it on out. And as I said earlier, I'm going to change the agenda just a little bit because I know you've got to leave in just a minute, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of time to go ahead and do your comments before you leave.
Okay. Thank you for, I do have to leave, and I wanted to do my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for changing it. I wanted to take just a minute to address the newspaper article yesterday in the News Argus concerning the health department meeting and the Dixie Trail property. A couple of things were a little offensive if that article was written as it actually happened, and a couple of things were not true. I want to lay out just a second on what the theory is, and also, most of all, make it a point of where we should look at taxpayer money. The Dixie Trail property was actually purchased, as you know, for the Advanced Manufacturing Center for approximately less than $10 a square foot and change, of like $780,000. The county estimated to renovate the existing property in order to move DSS and Health Department to that building. To renovate the existing building was about $1.5 million. We also had talked about adding on 20,000 square feet because we got 78,000, but we need about 98,000 for both. So there's about 20,000 square feet that we needed to add, which we can, and even at $200 a square foot, adding 20,000 square feet, you're looking at, and this is on the high side, I think, but let's just go that route, $4 million. The county, while it owned that building for the manufacturing center, the county, we put in renovations ourselves, about $600,000. Is that correct?
A little bit more than that.
Well, I'm on the conservative side, okay?
Being one with the roof and the HVAC.
Yeah, okay. So what you're looking at is you're looking at a total thus far of $6,880,000. But here's the kicker. That 20,000 square feet that could be added, DSS is able to get a rebate on up to 50% of the renovation cost for that 20,000 square feet. So if we're going to put $4 million into adding 2,000 square feet, we're going to get back approximately $2 million over time for DSS reimbursement, which makes the total investment in that whole building of $4,380,000. Now, the projected tear down of the old COB building and to build a new building for both Health Department and DSS was in the $20 million range. Is that correct, Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's use that figure, $20 million. Okay, if we take the cost of that building and we subtract the total cost of the Dixie Trail building, moving both the DSS and Health Department in that building, and you subtract the $4,380,000 after the reimbursement of DSS for the 20,000 square feet, we have a savings to the taxpayer of $15,620,000. I'm not saying either way. What I'm saying is that these are the figures, and they're probably on the conservative side, and we need to take a look at this whole project before we make a decision, because the taxpayers are going to foot the bill for this. And that $15,620,000, or if it's only $10 million, we can take that money and use it for some other projects in our county that's badly needed. There's been some controversial things about moving out to Dixie Trail building, but I will tell you this: I know that building. I did business with Busman for 25 years. I know that building. There are some advantages and there are some disadvantages. I will tell you that the information that I have and information I know, that there's more advantage to moving out there, both DSS and Health Department, than not. And I certainly will address those issues in the coming days. I would like to ask, since we only have a work session on this board about once a year for budget, I would like this to be put on our agenda as soon as possible for a work session that we can discuss this publicly, because the taxpayer is the one we need to consider. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry I have to leave at this time.
That's okay. That's okay. Thanks. I was running a little bit late, but we will now move into our public hearing to see public comments on the proposed incentive for Alta Foods for creating new jobs. Mark, do you need to come up and kind of brief us on that, if you would?
Morning, Mr. Chair and fellow commissioners. How are y'all doing this morning?
Morning.
I think back what Senator Davis said about being thankful. And our charge from Wayne County Development Alliance is to help our existing industries expand and grow our jobs. So it's kind of what I'm here to talk to you about today. Alta Foods LLC is in the midst of an expansion. They've been in business for over 10 years in Wayne County. The Barnes family has been in the food industry for over 30 years, and they're in charge of that operation now. They're a manufacturer of our flour and corn tortilla products. They were operating in a lease facility with no room for expansion. They had about 35 employees. They have purchased a new building out on Industry Court. They're in process of expanding that building. They've already hired 13 folks. That expansion is about $3 million in capital investment, and over the next 2 years they will be adding an additional 30 employees. So we're very thankful for our existing industries, what they do and what they create for us. Our mission is to help these folks get opportunities to help and assist their expansion. So what we've done is gone after a building reuse grant. We've got a total of $537,500 in that building reuse grant to assist Alta in their expansion. As you know, under our criteria of being the tier status of what we are, there's a 5% match of that. So that $536,000, what I'm here to ask for you today is up to a $26,875,000 match for that expansion. So the Rural Center will be putting in $537,500 for the expansion. Our portion would be $26,875. So what I'm here to do is ask for your support in doing that. We are following up with some other partners for a part of that match, but we need to go ahead and move forward in supporting a match.
Questions? All right. We are in a public hearing, so if there's anyone who wants to come up and speak about this issue, or Council, do we need to come out up here to vote, or can, yes. I thought so, I just wanted to be sure. All right, seeing none, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'll ask for a motion to match the expansion as Mr. Pope has suggested to us.
I will make the motion, subject to further discussions with some of your additional partners.
Okay.
or our additional partners.
To come. Thank you, though.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mark. Now, at this time, I will need to recess the Board of Commissioners meeting. We need to convene the Wayne County Board of Adjustment meeting. We've already been sworn in, so we don't need to go through that process again. And so the Wayne County Board of Adjustment meeting is open for a public hearing to receive public comments on a special use permit for Suncaster LLC Solar Energy at 345 Big Ditties Road in Pikeville. And Barry, if you'll come up and brief us on that before I open it up for comment.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
The special use permit request today is for a solar energy facility. This facility is at 345 Big Daddy's Road in Pikeville. This is actually just east of Pikeville, right outside Pikeville's jurisdiction. It is in the RA20 zoning district, and because of that, solar energy facilities are required to come through as a special use permit, which of course requires Board of Adjustment review and approval and a public hearing. So with that, I will mention that the Planning Board has reviewed the site plan in terms of the county's requirements. In our ordinance, it does meet the minimum standards of our ordinance, our solar energy facility ordinance. We did notify neighboring property owners through mail. Those notices were sent out November 1st. We also posted a sign in front of the property as well that same day. We've advertised in the paper twice. The week of November 5th and the week of November 12th. This property is located just down from Crossbow Drive, which has some residential lots on it, right outside of Pikeville. If you look at your screen, you can see or at your site plan, you can see the facility there, and you see Crossbow Drive is what's showing just above this development there with some homes, and you see those homes located there. As I mentioned, this does meet the minimum standards with the setback requirements. They are looking to do an opaque fence along that. It's actually the eastern edge, but it's on your screen. It's on the top part of those panels. So there will be an opaque fence there to help screen the facility from neighbors. But with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. The applicant is also here to answer questions that you may have as well.
Questions? Is there anyone from the public want to speak about it? If you'll come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Marcy Henn. I live at 133 Crossbow Drive in Pikeville. My telephone number is 919-344-4456. And we really do not appreciate this being put in our backyard, so to speak. It's ugly. We're worried about the glare from off of the panels. We're worried about other things. We're worried about if anything happens to one of the panels, can it leak into our groundwater? I've done some research on this, and it's really disheartening to know. I really don't want to be somewhere where I can hear an alarm 24/7 anytime where something should go in, a bird set it off, or whatever the case may be. I know I'm probably the only one from my neighborhood, but and I'm sure that it's going to pass regardless of what I think, but what I believe is at least I can complain because I said something. So, I mean, you know, I didn't spend my hard-earned money to sit out there and have something in my backyard like a solar farm. And I'm concerned about it. I've read that once the solar farm's put on land, you can't have a farm, can't have agriculture there anymore. It's not fallow property. It's got crops on it now. So I'm concerned about the way it looks. I have trees on the back of my property. I'm not willing to cut any of my trees because I live almost at the end. I live on S. I think S is our property. So I mean, we're just concerned about what it's going to do to property value. We've been there for almost 30 years. You know, we don't want to have anything detrimental put in our neighborhood. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Do you want to come up?
Thank you for your time. My name is Fred Flagstad. I live at 1447 South Tryon Street. Flagstad, Flagstad. So 1447 South Tryon Street in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I work at Green Go Energy. I'm the Director of Development. So first of all, I want to thank Ms. Hand for coming forward today, bringing these issues to our attention. I want to thank the board for hearing us at this time. In terms of glare, which is a concern, we did not only coordinate with the Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, we also coordinated with your local airport to make sure that we did not impact any planes. The proposed facility that we have right here is a single axis tracker, which means that it at all times faces at about a 45-degree angle to the sun, which means at no time will the sun ever be reflecting down upon a panel and into a house. The sun will always be reflecting onto the panels to have the optimal angle, and then any reflection of the sunlight would go into the sky. Now, that reflection of sunlight is about 6% of the sunlight that would hit the panel. That's standard for a solar panel. That's not unique to these solar panels, which is also why Seymour Johnson and your local airport do not have any issues with this. But I understand the concern, and I do want to recognize that it is a concern, but we have done extensive analysis to make sure that that was not an issue. Furthermore, leaks into groundwater is something that we've heard and encountered before. This is not a thing that can happen with a solar farm for a multitude of reasons. You shouldn't, however, trust me. This is conclusions that's been reached by NC State. They've done extensive research on this, so has the EPA. They have, in fact, done multiple tests where they try and crush up solar panels to see if anything can leak out of the panels into the groundwater. It is simply not possible. Last but not least, I want to make sure that we all understand we do not intend, have no plans to, and have no authority to put an alarm on an inside of the solar farm. No, nothing will go off. You will not be hearing any birds. No birds will be setting off anything, and I hope we can put that concern to rest. We do have security cameras to protect the property and make sure that we can alert the authorities in the case that something happens. That's not only for protection of the equipment, but also for protection of individuals that might have found themselves inside of the fence for various reasons. We want to make sure that if you're not authorized to be in there, we can help you get out of there as quickly as possible. We have a fence around the solar farm for the exact same purpose of keeping everyone safe and keeping everything in order. We have, to Ms. Hand's point, we put an opaque fence to make sure that you shield the view shed from the solar farm. And I would be, in fact, happy to commit to today, in insofar as this is a concern and this would help mitigate your issue, we're happy to plant some hollies along your property line to make sure that we further reduce that view shed, if that would help mitigate your concern. I'm sure it may not mitigate all your concerns, but we are here to be neighbors for a long time, for many, many years, and we're hoping to do what we can to make sure that this is not a blight on a community, but hopefully another value add to the community as your other solar farms undoubtedly have been. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. I also have Mr. Rich Kirkland here today. He's a property appraiser, specializes in solar farms, water treatment plants, and other assets. He is arguably the foremost expert in the United States in this, with more than 500 solar power plants behind him, and he can speak to the impact of property value from an appraiser standpoint, and I would ask that he come up and speak. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Again, my name is Rich Kirkland, Kirkland Appraisals. My address is 9408 Northfield Court, Raleigh. I'm a certified general appraiser in the state of North Carolina. I've been appraising residential properties, farms, and subdivision developments for the last 22 years in this state and the area. I'm also an MAI through the Appraisal Institute, and as Fred mentioned, I've been doing impact analysis and appraising solar farms for the last 9 years. In that time, I've looked at over 500 projects. Again, specifically addressing the question about impact on property values, that's really where I've been digging, looking for information. I know I've presented here before to this board, but looking at all these projects I'm looking at, most of them are in the state of North Carolina. Over 300 of the, probably close to 400 of the projects I've looked at are here in North Carolina. Most common adjoining uses around solar farms are agricultural properties and residential. If you look at the adjoining uses based on number of adjoining parcels, most common use is residential. If you look at adjoining uses based on acreage, the most common adjoining use is agricultural. They're really located in these areas where you've got the fields meeting the homes, because you need the open space to put the panels in, but you also have to have infrastructure to take the power out. This is a very typical location for a solar farm. It matches up with what I see across the state. I also did a summary that's included in the report that I believe was part of the supplemented package, but looked at 55 solar farms in and around Wake County, the adjoining counties. Again, it shows those same breakdowns of adjoining uses, showing agricultural, residential as the most common adjoining uses. In that package, I've included 10 solar farms where I've looked at in North Carolina and pulled out matched pairs. Matched pairs is where what the Appraisal Institute really teaches is how you measure if there's any impact on property value. Simply put, you look at a sale next to a solar farm and compare the sales price and the parameters of that property to a similar or identical property nearby. Again, from those 10 solar farms, I've pulled out 19 different matched pairs, looking at different sales, and finding consistently no impact on property values. And again, this is consistent. I've been doing this analysis in about 15 different states across the country, and again, the data, as far as adjoining uses, no impact, is very consistent across the country. Part of the analysis is I'm measuring how close homes are to solar panels. I always measure distance to the closest point on the house to the closest solar panel. I've got matched pairs that show no impact at 125 feet. The closest home in this project is 120 feet, and that is actually located near the north end, where there's already a lot of existing trees. And again, at 120 feet, that's, again, consistent with 125 feet. The visualization of from 125 feet to 120 feet, I don't think you can eyeball that. And the opaque fencing will help mitigate any appearances related to that. Again, I'd be happy to go into greater detail. I know I've presented here before and spoke specifically about the AM Best Solar Farm, where I've pulled a number of matched pairs. It's located here in Goldsboro. It's located just south along 117. And again, that solar farm actually is a really good textbook example of matched pair analysis, because there's homes that sold before the solar farm was put in and homes that sold afterwards that show no impact on property value on the price per square foot. Also, I can look at the identical floor plan adjoining the solar farm versus those across the street and down not adjoining the solar farm. Same floor plan sold for the same price regardless of where it was located. And also, there's been a sale and then a resale of a property in there that property adjoining the solar farm sold from the builder to the initial homeowner, and about 2.5, 3 years later, it sold again to another homeowner, and it showed appreciation that would be, the increase in value is consistent with what I would expect for the area. And I spoke with the developer team with that project also. They sold out the homes in that subdivision consistent with where their expectations were. It didn't affect how quickly the home sold either. So it's my professional opinion that the solar farm at this location is consistent with what I see. It's a typical location for a solar farm across the state and across this area around Wayne County. But and also, it's my professional opinion it'll have no impact on the adjoining property values. And again, I can go into more detail or answer any questions.
Questions?
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
No, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
How many solar farms have you worked with in Wayne County?
I can answer that pretty quick, I guess. Let me see. Page 29 of my report, I put a breakdown of the solar farms that I've tracked. And in Wayne County, that's B2. I've looked at 11 solar farms in Wayne County.
11.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Council, as this is a quasi-judicial board, what are our options here?
Well, first of all, we need to swear everybody who has testified.
Oh, we do? Okay. That I did not know.
Yeah. And so if, Ms. Hind, if you'd come up, Derek, if you, all of you would place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and face the clerk if she's going to swear you in.
I don't have that right. I'm sorry.
Do all of you swear that all the evidence that you have given or will give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, Bruce.
You gonna testify? Oh, you ready?
Good evening. My name is Chris Sandifer. I live at 3118 Green Road, Spring Hope, North Carolina, in Nash County, which is not very far from here. Thank you for letting us testify. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I'm an electrical engineer, graduate electrical engineer. I'm registered and licensed in the state of North Carolina as a professional engineer. I'm also a contractor, unlimited classification in the state of North Carolina. I have 100 acres of farmland that is currently under panels, and in the process of putting some more in. I'm also a farmer, and so from that standpoint, a lot of the issues were already addressed, but I just want to say that as far as the hazards, there's no hazardous components that can leach out, or anything. The EPA has done extensive tests on these panels. They are safe for landfills if that's how they need to be disposed, but they're much too valuable to ever be put into a landfill. I've also performed decommissioning studies, and it always proves out to be that even the scrap value for this equipment is much more valuable than putting in a landfill. So I want to say from there's no dust, there's no smell. It's understand it's in row crops. I've been by this site several times, not in the last few months, but I have been by this site several times in the last few years. And the application rates for herbicide at a facility like this is about 10%. And I always say never more than 25% of what it would be if you just put in Roundup Ready soybeans. Because basically the only place they put the chemicals is around the post, around the edges of the fence and stuff. So there are no pesticides, no insecticides that would commonly be used as a farmer for row crops. There's nothing like that would be able to leach in the soil. I want to also say that the chemicals like maybe lead solder that would be used in a silver lead solder to be used to make the connections inside these panels are sealed. And the amount of lead in one shotgun shell, it would be the equivalent amount of lead that would be in a whole string of panels. And these panels are sequestered. The lead in these panels are sequestered. They're sealed. It can't leach out. Whereas a shotgun shell, if they've ever had a dove hunt on this property, I mean, there's lead scattered all over the property from that. I don't know if that's happened, but a lot of folks, use their land for hunting, and that's. I just want to give you kind of perspective of what's there and what typical uses of a land like that would be. So in perpetuity, the amount of chemicals used would be less, and the toxicity of those chemicals would be less than if it was just left in row crops. And then I just want to state for the record that, and I'm just going to read this, it says, based on my experience as an engineer, record of many solar farms in the state of North Carolina, it's my professional opinion that the proposed project will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located in accordance with the plan and submitted and approved. So there's nothing here. This technology is well over 50 years old. There's nothing here. Wayne County has a lot of them, and I bet you have not had any problems with them. And so I'm also served on the Nash County Planning Board. I was there last night, and we've approved 37 utility scale solar farms so far. And so, and our planning staff is for that. It's good tax revenue for the county, and we've had no problems. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, technical questions about health and safety that you may have concerning a solar panel or solar farm, solar energy facility. Mr. Chairman, I did have one question.
Sure.
Which concerned me on a prior statement, and that is that this property could never be used for farming in the future.
my understanding is that these panels can in fact be removed and could be reverted back to farming. Am
Yes,
I
sir.
correct?
I've done decommissioning studies on it. These basically take a galvanized steel pile, that's what I call them. It's a post, but it's like an I-beam steel, and they pressure drive them into the soil. So they don't disturb the soil they're not trying to, move soil around. You just basically follow the terrain of the soil. That's pretty flat over there anyway, so that wouldn't be a problem. And so on this particular site, they'll probably have 2 or maybe 3 concrete pads that will maybe be 10 foot square. Okay, and so those 10-foot pads are basically the only thing that's going to be put out there that's going to have to be removed at cost. Everything else that you put out there will have a salvage value that would more than pay for the labor to take it out. So when you just pull those out, because they're not in concrete, you just pull them out, you unbolt the panel, unhook the wiring, you yank it out the ground, you take the concrete off. At 25 or 35 years, the major problem you're going to have in putting it back in production is that land will not have been limed for 35 years. So you'll have to go out there and put pulverized lime to get the pH back right. If you were farming it contiguously for 35 years, you'd probably have limed it multiple times. But the solar farm has no incentive to keep the soil limed, to keep the weeds growing. So they will not do that. But if you wanted to convert it back to farmland, all you'd have to do is lime the soil, get the pH back right, because there's still coal plants in Ohio, there's still coal plants in Kentucky, they're still sending us acid rain, and so the ground naturally will get more acidic over 35 years, or 40, or however long this project is going to be out there. And
But
then,
could be converted back.
oh, absolutely, no problem, absolutely. I would not have, I won't be here in 40 years, and I would not have put that on my children. If I thought that this was going to be a hazard and my children have to deal with this, because I'll be gone, but when this thing goes, it's ready to be commissioned, I would never have put that on my children. I love them too much. So I've done them on our own family property. So thank you. Thank you.
So, if I understand your role correctly, you may give expert advice up and down the East Coast, statewide.
Yes, sir.
And you're dealing, so we sort of have a geographical sense. Nash County, Wayne County, Wilson County, Duplin County, I mean.
I'm an electrical contractor. I don't put into panels per se. I also worked for Duke for 30 years, so I'm very familiar with high voltage stuff, and that's kind of the niche in my electrical contracting business. And so I probably have hooked up between between Wayne County and Duplin County. I probably have interconnected 10 projects.
I have, because I was serving on the planning board for, I know at least 2 or 3 terms, and so I was actively involved in the lead-up work and the approving of them for them to come to this board. What would you say would be the drawbacks to any farmland, positive or negative, in terms of putting in solar facilities in Wayne and Duplin and the nearby counties? Are there any impediments? What's the drawbacks?
The only thing I can think of would be 2. And one would be the rates they lease the land at is much, much higher than a farmer can afford to pay for the same acre. Right. So it's not competitive in that sense. So if you have a location that is suitable, and there's a lot of land in Wayne County, it's great farmland, but it's not suitable for a solar farm because they have no way of interconnecting or exporting the energy from that area. So if you happen to have a place, a farm, some land then the farmer is going to be at a disadvantage to be able to pay $500 or more an acre for that farmland. You know what I'm saying? So as long as it's available and capable of producing energy from the sun, the farmer probably will be priced out.
So that's is that a renewable? Is that annually, or is that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just like a farmer would pay 85 to 100. I had some farmland, I leased them for $125 an acre. It was really, really good in Lee County, and but most time I can't get that from a farmer for row crop.
But for a company to be interested in pursuing a farm or for Duke, it has to be in an area where the energy can be exported.
Yes, sir.
Back
You've got to be able
some
to
site.
interconnect to the grid. You know, people ask me all that, can I build a farm, solar farm? I say, sure, we live in America. You can build all the solar farms you want. But if you can't sell the output, it's kind of a waste to spend $1 million a megawatt to install the solar farm, and you can't get any return on your investment. So you have to be able to interconnect to do that.
I was at a workshop once, and I was led to believe that if you could look at the power lines on a particular road and determine whether or not that land would be suitable to export. Is there such a visual guide that one could just look at an area and tell whether or not, or is there something else that's played into that?
I do what I call utility compatibility reports. I provide those because having worked with utility, and so I can tell you right now, I can't ride down the road and look at one and tell you where it is because you don't know what's on that line. You don't know what kind of load's on it. You got to know who the utility is. You got to know the capacity the substation connects to. You got to know the transmission lines it connects to. And there's a lot more to it than, I mean, you could go down the road and see a single phase line. You would know that was not compatible, you know. But looking at a 3-phase line and the size of it, that might make you think it was compatible, but you'd have to do a lot more work and research to you know, like I say, I do it, but it takes me an hour and a half to figure it out. I mean, I just can't ride down the road and do it. I have to do a lot of research to actually figure out whether, and that's what my clients pay me to do. They ask me, you know, what's the probability of success for this particular farm? And guess what? Probably 95 out of 100 don't pass. You know, they just don't make it. 5 out of 100 might. So it's not automatic. If that makes sense to you.
I hear you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, question for council. Is it legal for me to talk to you one-on-one for just a second before we act on this?
Yes, sir.
Is that permissible with you, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Did I answer everything?
Do you have a card?
Yes, sir. Can I approach you? Can I approach?
Please.
You better give it.
Just
okay.
You bring it to me.
Oh, yeah. That's true. No, you can't.
Mr. Chairman, I did have an additional question of Mr. Gray before you close out the public hearing.
And I got a question to ask you. But I was bringing it up before we got there.
We're good.
Do you have any more questions for me?
No, actually, I had a question of Mr.
Barry. Okay.
Barry.
Thank you. I think we done it. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
In our ordinance, I keep hearing about this opaque fence. Well, first of all, let me say this. I got my package on this, and that's what I got. When I looked at this picture, I immediately saw a picture of a solar farm surrounded by woods. That's a little bit deceptive. I was not aware that it had adjoining residential to that. So if you will ask when they make these presentations that they give us a true picture, if they're going to give us a picture. The opaque fence that is there is basically on the property line. Is that correct?
It is. It is. Yes, sir.
Who is going to maintain this opaque fence?
It'll be maintained by the applicant.
Number two, are we not requiring any vegetational buffer?
No, the ordinance states that you can, the applicant has a choice to either do an opaque fence or to do a vegetative buffer, one or the other. In some cases, in the past, the board has asked, and since this is a special use, you can apply special conditions to this. In the past, you have asked the applicant to consider both in some situations where there might be neighbors adjacent.
And then, council, if I could ask you, can we add an additional condition, and that is that vegetation be planted where the adjoining property owner so requested?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to, probably just, I would like to ask Chip a question. Did we not normally have vegetative?
It's an either-or option. In some instances where you have residential construction.
He's sworn, yes.
In some instances where you have residential construction, it would be more appropriate to have a vegetative buffer. But in the ordinance, it is an either-or. There's less maintenance ongoing with a fence than there is a vegetative buffer. And then when you put the fence up, it's already, visually it's in the obstructions in place. When you put the vegetative buffer in there, it's got to grow to fully cover it in. So it is an option in the ordinance, and as the Board of Adjustments, you can add a condition to the approval of putting in that buffer along that subdivision if you so wish to make that the case.
In the past, were there more vegetative buffers done?
Typically
it was,
vegetative.
wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
I just remember that being the case, and we would, for the sake of the home owners in the neighborhoods, I would encourage us not to venture far away from that vegetative, sir.
I would make a recommendation that they add a vegetative buffer along the entire perimeter that borders that residential neighborhood, not just the one house. That would be my recommendation. Also, let me bring it to your attention that in the ordinance, as it relates to special uses, states that the permission may be granted for the establishment of special uses shown in the district if the Board of Adjustment finds from the evidence produced. So when somebody comes before you, you have to provide evidence of what they're speaking on. You can't make a basis of judgment on opinion. It has to be based on factual evidence that's presented to you. So, and there's a couple of there's 5 issues there. The proposed use does not affect adversely the general plans for the physical development of the county and will not be contrary to the purposes stated in the regulations. The proposed use will not adversely affect the health and safety of the county residents and will not be detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties or other neighborhood uses. C, the use will not be affected adversely by other existing uses and will be placed on a lot of sufficient size, which it meets that. The proposed use will not constitute a nuisance or hazard because of the number of persons who will use such a facility, the vehicular movement, or the noise or fume generation. And E, the proposed use shall be subject to the minimum dimensional requirements of the district in which it is to be located, which it does. The Board of Adjustment may issue a special use permit if its findings are favorable. As an additional safeguard, the board may impose or require as conditions such additional restrictions and standards, such as the buffer, as may be necessary to protect the health and safety of the community and to protect the value and use of the property in the general neighborhood. As supporting evidence that they are seeking approval of the site plan, they submitted it in your agenda packages, evidence of an approved site plan by the Wayne County Planning Board, their application for a special use permit, the interconnection application with the energy provider, a decommissioning plan, property owner's consent for the applicant to act on their behalf, a community meeting information, and a property impact statement from an appraisal group. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Thank you, sir, because I just had remembered that.
Yes, sir.
I thought there was such an extensive level of protections and conditions that was afforded the current property owners around that we've approved a lot of these in Wayne County. I know there's a lot of them going up in eastern North Carolina. And I'm concerned that our property owners would have some assurances that there was going to be a lot of aesthetic things done so as to minimize the concern of current property owners. So once we follow all those things, if we keep all that in place, then the best that we can do is to give you assurances that we go be watchdogging this stuff without any other way to explain it. But thank you, Chip, and thank you. We're going to do the best we can. Thank you, sir.
Well, I'd swear him into, I guess.
I do. Jason Hanna, I also preside at 133 Crossborough Drive there in Pikeville, and my phone number is 919-344-3738. And I was just wondering, if you do decide to make them put the buffer zone with vegetation, are they going to be planting it on their property or our property? Are they going to make them move the fence back where this vegetation is on their property?
Our assistant county manager said their property.
That's why I was just wondering if that was. So when they're proposing, they're putting a fence on the property line. There's no restriction for them to keep the fence a certain amount of distance off the property line.
Depends on how they do their vegetative buffer. They'll probably back their fence up, I would think. They back their fence up and then put their 25-foot buffer.
Okay, that's all I had.
Just one, has the fence already been put down? Okay.
We can't do anything till we
vote on it.
Okay, I didn't want the cart before the horse kind of thing, so we can move forward in a very sequential way and give the greatest satisfaction to everybody involved. Thank you.
My question was, is there any issue with them putting that vegetative?
Mr. Chairman, I think the Board of Adjustment could continue this matter to let them bring a new plan back to you that shows exactly where the fence is going to be and where the vegetative buffer is going to be.
I may be recognized?
Yes.
So my understanding is, and I might be wrong, so please correct me if this is not correct, that you may find and impose additional requirements insofar as we have not shown evidence that it does not impact the health and safety of the community, or that it does not negatively impact the property value. Here today, we have an expert to speak to you about the impact on property value. I'd like to turn into evidence Mr. Kirkland's appraisal report. This extensive report is evidence that there's no impact to adjacent property values. That was one of the two parameters that would allow you to add additional requirements. In addition to that, we have Mr. Chris Sandifer here, 30-year veteran of Duke Energy and specialized in this field. His expert testimony is that there's no adverse health effects that impacts thank you, ma'am, that impacts the community or the neighbors. In addition to that, I would like to turn into evidence the North Carolina Energy Technology Center Health and Safety Impacts of Solar Photovoltaics from NC State University. This evidence, and I can quote from it, concludes that in each of these sections, the negative health and safety impacts of utility-scale PV development were shown to be negligible, while the public health and safety benefits of installing these facilities are significant and far outweighs any negative impacts. So not only does our expert witness testify to the fact that there's no negative health impacts, so does NC State University, our own favored university here in the state of North Carolina. So I would with that say that we've shown adequate evidence, adequate testimony in this quasi-judicial hearing that we, in fact, do not negatively impact the neighbors. And that's why we ask that this be approved today. That said, we are committed to, and my testimony is on the public record, on that entire brim on the eastern side of the property, along with those properties, we will commit to putting in a vegetative buffer. What we will do is we'll move the fence back 20 feet from the property line, and then we'll put one row of green hollies all along that part of the fence, so as to mitigate any view shed in it, so far as there is not already existing vegetation in place that would make it obsolete or not relevant to place any additional vegetation. I'm happy to make that commitment today. I can bind the company. I'm here as the applicant, but I would also ask that you, the board, do approve this right away, as we have shown the necessary evidence as per your ordinance, as per this quasi-judicial hearing, to allow you to approve this. And there's been no testimony presented today from another expert witness that would showcase anything that differs or disagrees with the expert testimony that we presented. I respectfully thank you for your time.
Council, with that commitment, could we move ahead if we wanted to?
You could move ahead, and that would be part of the agreement. You would approve it subject to that.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
I so move.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion?
That is subject to the commitment that you're moving the fence back and planting a buffer along that entire road.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Okay, now we'll adjourn the Wayne County Board of Adjustment meeting, and we will reconvene the Board of Commissioners meeting. And we'll go to consent agenda, which we discussed at length in the opening session. Is there any other discussion there?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. County Manager, you're ready.
No comments at this time.
No comments. Mr. Commercial. We'll start with you.
Oh, we're already there?
Yeah, we're already there. We're shooting for 10:30.
Yes, and I'm going to make my comments as short as possible. I would like to thank Mr. Merrill for coming up and maybe putting us in a current state of understanding that there are things still to be done with the school system. And yes, we are satisfied with our county management leadership when it comes to the school system. We are currently, I think, in adequate communication with the school system to get some assurances as to the direction we need to be going. Having said that, we know that there are brick and mortar issues with the school system still existing. We understand that the school system has resolutions in place dealing with the state office concerning certain operational things with the school system. We need to be patient and give our leadership an opportunity to work together to move us in the appropriate direction. Having said that, though, Mr. Merrill, we always appreciate parents and grandparents' interest in the school system and our role as it relates to all this. We're mindful, and nothing wrong with being reminded. Thank you.
Mr. Daughtry.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Congratulations. Mr. Aycock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to apologize to our veterans. I was out of town for the Veterans Parade, but I do appreciate what all of our veterans has done, and there are many women that are serving now are doing. Also attended the Highway 70 Corridor meeting last week. Got some good information from that. I turned that information over to the county manager so he can, in his spare time, read it. Also last week, just happened to be at the courthouse and had the pleasure of sitting in on a meeting of young people. I don't remember what the name of the group was. Junior Chamber Leadership. I just happened to be up here and sat in on, they were going around from working on city government, county government, and other things that's going on in the county. And I was impressed with that group of young people. And as I told them, they are the future. Someday they will be sitting in the seats that we're sitting in, or possibly in positions higher. But I was impressed, and they did ask a few questions, good questions. Also attended the Seven Springs Christmas Parade Saturday. Great turnout. I mean, what that community has been through in the last few years, they still got the spirits, and it was a fantastic turnout for that. And that's all my comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Gurley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I was unable to be here earlier today due to an appointment, and I hate I missed presentations, but I want to offer my congratulations to Ms. Pam Baker Minshew for the service she's provided in Wayne County. And I can't think of any one elected official that has served citizens any better with transparency, integrity, and dignity. And now Pam is well-deserved and go home and play with his grandbabies. Thanks.
I was able to make the Veterans Parade. It was mighty chilly out there, but it was a really nice parade. Thanks to Bill Graham and the Patriots Coalition for working so hard to put that on, as they always do. Enjoyed going to the Seven Springs Parade, and we're getting ready to start all the parades here in another week, I guess. And enjoyed the Farm City Banquet last night. Big crowd out at the Maxwell Convention Center, and a good meal. And other than that, I'll say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And I do know we need to go back into closed session for the same reason. There's a motion to go in closed session. All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. We're back. Okay, we're back. And Council, I think you had a motion for us that we were going to discuss.
You were going to approve the signing of a contract with Axon to acquire body cameras and car cameras for the sheriff's office, subject to the approval of the county manager and your council.
Mr. Chairman, I so move that we approve that.
Have we got a motion on the floor? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. We're adjourned.